Before we start, we need to sing happy birthday to Nate.
Oh, we can do that.
Oh, I love that. Hold on, I gotta. To you.
You ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Can't see over the screen.
The struggle to realize that.
They occasionally tip over to see y'all. All right, we're gonna talk. Oh, no. We're talking about some family dynamics and human growth and development today. So just what family dynamics are and how they affect, especially the youth that we work with. Family dynamics refers to the patterns of interactions among relatives, their roles and relationships, and the various factors that shape their interactions. So pretty much basically how does the family interact and what roles do they play? So what role does dad play? What role does mom play? What role does the kids play? Things like that, and how they interact together. All right, so I'm gonna try to make this somewhat not boring. I was just reading that to you. So how many people have ever played popcorn in school? Mr. Mark. All right. So we're gonna start out. Who wants to start with the ball? So after you read, then you go to whoever you want to read next. You're playing a new one.
Oh, we had last time we were dating.
Do you want me to do this? Yeah. I got a whole bunch of them though. Oh, thank you. Yeah. All right, the power of family.
Family members are viewed as the primary source of relationship security or strength since they rely on each other for emotional, physical, and economic support. Here.
Hello, good morning. The interpersonal interactions among family members create lasting impact and influences the development and well-being of an individual psychologically, behaviorally, and through I can't say this before.
Physiological pathways.
Thank you. Family dynamic and the quality of family relationships can positively or negatively impact health.
All right, so in short words, those roles, those interactions, they're going to affect the kids on a deeper level than just surface. They're going to affect their brain, which affects their behavior, and so forth. So it's just a catalyst. So whoever.
Even where there is little or no present contact with family, a young person will have been influenced by dynamics in earlier years. Family dynamics often have a strong influence on the way young people see themselves, others, and the world, and influence their relationships, behaviors, and their well-being.
Okay, so key, little or no present contact. So that means, so we have kids here, right? They may not have been around their family since they were what, 6, 7 years old. So you think, oh, it shouldn't have that big of an impression on them. No, it still does. So when we think, oh, they were little, it doesn't matter. No, the roles and impacts that they saw, they're still going to affect them even in the future at 13, 14 years old, even when they haven't been around them for 10 years. So when it says the way young people see themselves and others in the world. So how often have we had a kid that, what do we talk about yesterday? Self-esteem, trust with you all, things like that. So if mom yelled and screamed and cussed and carried on, how do you think they're going to react to a female authority figure? Probably not real well, right? All right.
People take on different roles or functions within the family system. These roles may be the result of family dynamics. The way the people behave and interact in their roles may not be a result of conscious choice.
So what does that mean, conscious choice?
They don't realize they're doing it.
They don't realize they're doing it, right? When you've grown up in a family pattern over and over and that's all you've seen, it's just how you're gonna react, right? It's not that you're thinking, I think I'm gonna yell and scream because somebody told me no. It's just all you've seen your whole life is mom was told no, dad was told no. Well, they yelled, they fought, they got their way. All right.
Oh.
Straight to that.
Chris, you got it.
You should be in the World Series right now, Jerry.
Which one am I reading?
You can just read peacekeeper.
Peacekeeper. A young person may be unintentionally playing the role of peacekeeper, mediating and reducing tension between conflicting parents. Their behavior may be in response to their unconscious anxiety about family breakdown. This role may lead them to stay as a child in their family rather than move towards age-appropriate independence.
All right, so peacekeeper, the one that tries to keep peace. Can we think of any kids that we have or that are the peacekeepers? True. Okay. Are any of us peacekeepers within our family? Right? So that's one role. So there's many roles, but these are kind of the three that we'll probably see the most, okay? So peacekeeper, who's next? Who you gonna throw it at? Or did you already throw it?
No one's looking at this. Chris, thank you.
Oh, you just ahead.
Yeah.
The problem
Be
as
fine.
the role. Sometimes a young person's problems, for example, drug use may play a role in the family system, distracting the family from other problems. One of the early family system theorists, Mnuchin, identified that the negotiation of spouse stresses through the child serves to maintain the spouse subsystem and illusory harmony. Spouses may reinforce behavior in a child to allow them to avoid addressing their own relationship difficulties, thereby keeping the family together.
So in other words, if your kids cause conflict, you don't have to face your own. We'll keep them stirred up and they stay upset. Man, mom doesn't realize I'm being a jerk. Right? Because you're too focused on the kid. So more or less you're using the kid to avoid your own issues. Again, can we think of any kids that may have came from being used as the distraction? Or face that in ourselves. All right, who wants to read scapegoat? Or who's Caitlin gonna make the scapegoat?
Often a young person with difficulties is seen as the black sheep or the bad child within the family, while other children are seen as the good children.
I'm sorry.
At-
As the good children. My fault. Sorry.
The young person has become the scapegoat for the family or the visible symptom of a troubled family system.
So it kind of goes, not really with the role, but in a different form of, they get blamed, right? Well, you're the problem. You keep getting suspended from school. That makes us fight. So you're the problem. You're the one coming home drunk at night, so. And just point the finger at you because that causes us to fight. So they just become the victim, pretty much, right? The scapegoat is pretty much the victim in the situation of everything's just pinned on them. All right. Individualization. So these are healthy family dynamics you should be looking at.
Somebody's hand.
Oh, I've got. Okay. First, I was
sorry, a person attains status as an individual human being and exerts himself as such in the world, a phase of development occurring between the 18th and 36th months, in which infants become less dependent on their mothers and begin to satisfy their own wishes and fend for themselves.
Alright, so why would it be healthy to be individual? So it's under healthy, right? So if we're able to kind of break away from our parents and not have to depend on them all the time, will that make us more successful in the future? What happens if our parents have made us dependent upon them?
Then you can't regulate when you're separated normal.
Yeah, you become attached. You don't know how. You don't know how to be your own person. You get out in the world and you're like, well, I ain't got a clue. And we've probably seen that a few times here, haven't we? They've been enmeshed so much that they get here and they're like, I have no clue how to even wash my own hair. So that's why it's healthy to break away. All right, mutuality. Okay, well, you want to throw it at somebody or you want to read it?
I won't throw it somebody. Somebody doesn't look at me, I'm just gonna throw it. And they're just not doing that.
Everybody's looking away.
The back of your head.
Well, like you said, there, each member feels a shared sense of togetherness when they live it. A supportive environment, everyone's growth and happiness are valued.
All right, so you have a shared sense of togetherness. You respect each other.
Handed to you.
If you have no respect, I mean, even here, right? So in a family, right? We can say we're family. What happens if you don't respect each other? It's not a great relationship, right? If you don't respect each other, if you don't trust each other, if you can't form those bonds, especially when you're little, how's that going to affect you in the future? If you don't trust your parents, are you going to trust anybody else in this world? No. All right, flexibility.
Family members can change and adapt their thinking and behaviors based on their needs. That's how they think.
All right, so pretty simple, right? You're not rigid. You're not set in it has to be this way. Or it cannot be any other way. You can be like, well, you know what? Timmy wants to go get ice cream. I want to stay home. But maybe I can change my mind and go get ice cream, right? Or maybe Timmy can change his mind and stay home and we do it tomorrow. Having that ability to change your mind without it turning into a mess. And you're just like, I can't do it, right? So we have a few kids here that, okay, so let's use an autistic kid, for example, right? Someone with autism, when they have their mindset on something, they have their mindset on something, right? That cognitive flexibility, and that's doesn't come from family dynamics, but it's a good example of what we're trying to explain, right? It has to be this way or the world is just, it can't be. So in a family, if you're like that, when you get in a relationship, what's going to happen in the future if your family was it's this way or the highway? Might cause some strain in the future, right? Your spouse might not end up liking that too well when it's your way or the highway, because it's probably going to end in the highway. Unless they were the peacekeeper, right? All right, continued healthy family dynamics.
Stability, when family members exist in a coexistent, low conflict environment and have most of the basic needs met. And clear communication, when family members can speak openly and honestly with one another without worrying about the consequences of speaking up. In particular, mutuality, a shared feeling of cohesion, has been identified as most vital contributing factor.
All right, so it's pretty basic, right? If it's stable, you're happy. Clear communication. I mean, I don't think we need another definition of that, do we? All right. Who do you want to throw it at?
What's your name? What's your name?
I'm Shane.
Shane.
He's my favorite letter.
Hi, Shane.
Shane.
So we talked about healthy, so now these are healthy dynamic.
Enmeshment, when family members have unhealthily close relationships and poor boundaries. Isolation, when family members are unable to have supportive relationships with others outside of their family unit. Rigidity.
Rigidity.
Yeah, rigidity, when families have inflexible, strict rules about conduct and behavior.
All right, so I used the word enmeshment earlier. That's when you're just so tied in together that nothing else exists outside of your little bubble. Isolation, again, pretty basic, right? You kind of goes with enmeshment. You're so tied up in your family that you don't know how to interact with the outside world. And then rigidity, again, that goes with that strict rules. It's my way or it's the highway, and that's the only way we're going to do it. Yeah, disorganization.
Difficulty restricting to regulate schedules and routines. They are also characterized by independent and unpredictable caregivers who have trouble keeping promises.
Sitting over in the corner thinking
You
you buy with it.
Unclear, yeah.
Yeah.
Unclear communication, when family members are unable to speak openly and honestly with one another, or they fear the consequences of speaking up.
Want to keep going or do you want to?
You want to throw it or you, either way.
Role conflict when family members' roles and responsibilities are developmentally inappropriate or exceed their bandwidth.
So they exceed their ability to process something, right? So which one of those do you think you see the most? Hmm.
There's a lot of real conflict with the girls.
Okay,
The people, they have those, especially with mom.
okay. Role conflict. How often do we hear how hard it is for the kids when they first show up to stick to a schedule and routine?
I was saying the boys, the first one was saying was boys.
Yeah. Because if you've never had to, right, you kind of had to fend for yourself your whole life. You got to do whatever you want. You come in somewhere that's structured. That's a whole new world. That's going to take a whole lot of restructuring of your own thoughts to get used to, right? Even the 12-year-olds, again, we think, oh, they're little, like it's easier. Well, no, that's all you've known for 12 years. It's not as simple as just being like, follow the schedule. It takes them a minute to understand this is how normalcy is. Because if you think about it, most of these kids don't come from what we consider normalcy, right? You get up at a certain time, you brush your teeth, you get ready, you do your things, whatever, you go to school, you come back and you have this set. No, most of these kids have had to what? Wake themselves up if they wake up. They've had to figure out, well, I don't know, I'm just gonna throw something on out of the closet because I really don't know how to dress myself and figure out how to get to the bus by myself. And half the time I may not get to the bus by myself. And I get to school and then I don't know what to do, so I get in trouble at school. Or I don't go to school and then I just chill at the house all day, right? And just try to figure it out because just me hanging out by myself. So there is,
That almost creates the role conflict sometimes, huh?
well, so if mom and dad aren't there, right, you've got to
Yeah.
take care of yourself, then you want to step into that role of,
Yeah.
especially we've had a lot of kids that have younger siblings, right? How many times have they came in and they're the ones that had to be the parent? They
Yeah.
had to set the routine. They had to set the role.
Yeah.
So then that's where role conflict comes in because they've always had to be the parent. And they don't know how to step out of that role and be a kid here. And then it causes conflict because, like you said, Miss Angie, there's a few of them that want to be mom or want to be dad. Everybody's fighting for the,
Resident.
Right.
they're used to having to be responsible. Why should I be a kid? I've had many kids send my office and go, well, I don't know how to be a kid. Why I can't not be. I can't not. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause he's had to be.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And then at times we get frustrated, right? Because we're like, just be a kid, stop, right? But it's so ingrained in them, how can we expect them to be a kid when they don't even know what being a kid is? All right, so effects of unhealthy family dynamics. So these are things that when you're in an unhealthy family dynamic that can happen. So trauma and stress from childhood experiences. It increases developing physical and mental health problems, increases risk of physical issues, including heart, lung, liver disease, depression, anxiety, PTSD. It goes on, right? I can bring a whole DSM and lay it in front of you. Unhealthy dynamics also correlate to an increase of substance use and addiction among adolescents. Stressful relationships may lead to poor coping mechanisms that harm individuals' health. So we pretty much know they're going to cause psychological distress, right? But who's surprised that it causes physical health issues? Okay, so I heard them start stress causes health problems.
Yes,
Exactly, right?
yes, I'm not shocked at all.
You're not shocked at all, no. Because if you're stressed out, what's going to happen? Your blood pressure's going to go up. Your heart rate's going to go up. If you've spent your whole first 15 years of your life stressed out, probably not going to be real good on you.
Yeah.
All right, trauma and family dysfunction. All right, whoever had the ball, you can throw it.
Good job.
This is why I only have like 2 of those left.
Where'd it go?
The largest contributor to childhood trauma in the USA is family dysfunction. As almost half of child onset mental disorders and about a third of adult onset mental disorders are preceded by child abuse and neglect and family dysfunction.
Not surprising, right? All right, so now we're going to talk about what are actually the stages of development. So we talked about it affecting, right? But what exactly are the ages when we talk about childhood or adolescence or adult or whatever? So you want to throw the ball? Oh, you're done? Oh, sorry. I missed that.
Infancy, neonate to up to 1 year age. Toddler is 1 to 5 years of age. Childhood is 3 to 11 years old. Early childhood is from 3 to 8 years old. And middle childhood is from 9 to 11 years old. Adolescence or teenage is from 12 to 18 years old, and then adulthood.
All right, so that's 18 and everything else, right? What population or populations do we typically work with? Okay, so adolescents, and sometimes we get what? Sometimes we get childhood, because technically we're licensed for 10 to 21, 18, they can be 21 things.
Can be, yeah.
But 10 to 18, but we don't typically get a whole lot of 10-year-olds unless, circumstances. So typically we're childhood, but mainly adolescent. All right. So Erickson's 8th stage of psychosocial development. Looking at that like
This takes me back.
oh,
okay.
To be taken back. Go ahead, Sleep.
Take it back to psychology. Okay, 8 stages. Trust versus, isn't it trust versus mistrust?
Well, it can be right. Well,
Okay,
you trust and mistrust, but yeah.
okay. Infants develop trust with a warm response from the caretaker. Autonomy and doubt in the toddler age group 1 to 3 years. Children feel autonomous if caregivers encourage independence. Otherwise, they doubt their abilities. And then there's initiative. I keep wanting to say versus guilt in the preschool age group, 3 to 6 years. Kids experiment with their ambitions through imaginative play. If parents do not encourage their initiative, the kids feel guilt. Industry and inferiority in early child's school years. Children learn to work as a group in school. They have feelings of inferiority if their peer environment is hostile. Identity and role confusion in adolescence. This one probably sounds familiar to you guys. Self-identity is a significant development. Intimacy and isolation in early adulthood. Those who cannot establish relationships or intimacy are prone to be socially isolated. Generativity, is that how you say that? And stagnation in middle adulthood. Parenting is the best example to guide the younger generation. And then ego, integrity, and despair in late adulthood. People who are unsatisfied with what they did during their lifetime are in despair.
All right, so the reason this is on here is we talk about how family dynamics affects us. But if we're not meeting each of these stages, if you're not meeting these stages at these times, then that's how it goes into. So autonomy and doubt. Children feel autonomous if caregivers encourage independence. So if 1 to 3 years old, you're not encouraged independence, it's not saying that you're never going to be independent, but it's going to be a whole lot harder to learn to be independent. Because you have to have that foundation of, so if you're not let the baby walk, right? Let them fall down, let them learn. If you're going to carry them everywhere, they're never going to feel brave enough to make that leap, right? Trust and mistrust. That starts below a year old. You think, oh, again, a baby, right? They don't know. Well, if you're just gonna leave the baby in the room all day and you're not coming in there, and I mean, there's a difference between cried out method, right? Which is no words. But there's a difference between the cried out method and I'm gonna leave you in a room all day. Your diaper's not gonna be changed. You're not gonna be fed when you're asking to be fed, and I'm not going to soothe you ever, right? If you're not doing that as a baby, it's crazy to think that it makes a difference, but it does. Then when we think about kids that we have that have been adopted, right? They may not know anything from 2 years. You may not think they know anything from 2 years beyond when they were adopted, right? But you have to think, there's 2 stages at least, if not 3, they may or may not have hit already. And as crazy as it seems, it still has an effect on them, even that young. All right, examples of trauma.
In children, motor vehicle accidents, bullying, terrorism, exposure to war, child maltreatment, physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, neglect, and exposure to domestic and community violence are common types of childhood traumas that result in distress, post-traumatic stress disorder, and post-traumatic stress symptoms.
Pretty self-explanatory, right? I mean, our kids go through maybe not as much motor vehicle accidents or exposure to war, but all the rest of them, the majority have experienced one of those types, if they're not still experiencing one of those types of trauma when they come to us. Okay. Trauma is childhood. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry, Ashley. Oh. Trauma in childhood adolescence is associated with greater rates of PTSD, PTSS, depression, and anxiety. It is also associated with higher antisocial behaviors and a greater risk for alcohol and substance use disorders. Shocking, right? Very shocking. So again, how many of our kids come to us not having a clue how to have any social skills? How many have we had that are 12 years old and have done substances that we've never even heard of in our lives? I've read many intake papers of 10-year-olds that are dropping Molly. Like, it's an everyday occurrence. I mean, it's how many do we have that are come to us at 14 and have a major THC use? Does it make more sense why? Besides just, yeah, I thought it was cool. I thought it was fun. My friend was doing it. All right, how it can affect our youth.
PTSD symptoms are associated with stress and things. Cardiovascular, gastric, and musculoskeletal, and brain structure and function. These sometimes contribute to life and or deficit multisystem development, achievements and behavioral cognitive and emotional.
All right. So again, I mean, you have your physical symptoms, right? How many do we have that have tummy issues? A bunch, right? They get nervous, they get stressed, they have a tummy issue. All right, let's also think about though the second one. If you've experienced trauma, there are delays in your behavior. There are delays in your cognition, which means how you think about things and how you process things, and delays in emotional regulation. So again, it's not always, and sometimes it is just thinking being a jerk, right? But the majority of the time, it's not because they're being a jerk. It's because they have no clue how to deal with it. Absolutely none. Because their brain hasn't had a chance. All right, I'll do the psycho. All right. So the stressors associated with the traumatic event are preceded by the body's sensory systems to the brain's thalamus, which then activates the amygdala, a central component of the brain's fear detection and anxiety circuit. Cortisol levels become elevated through transmission of fear signals to the neurons to the prefrontal cortex, hypothalamus, and hippocampus, and activity increases in the locus coeruleus and sympathetic nervous system. Subsequent changes in, not sure, levels. Thank you. Levels contribute to change in heart rate, metabolic rate, blood pressure, and alertness. Thank you, because when I don't say a word, when I don't know how to say it, I don't know how to say it. Because it's hard to that's going to come out of my mouth. Anyway, the point of this was that's a lot up here, right? How many systems did we hit for? The fancy word is like fight or flight, right? Fight or flight. Basically. So the point of this was to say, okay, there's a lot going on right there.
More physical effects.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. What we see versus what's going on inside of them. This is triggering this, and then that's triggering that, and that doesn't know how to work because this is doing this, and that's doing that. So in that 25 seconds that they're flipping out, they're starting to flip out, all that is or isn't working.
I thought you said all that is or isn't working. I thought you said a question.
No. I'm saying like in that amount of time that we're frustrated and they're flipping out and everything's happening, we have to think all that's happening inside of them within that little amount of time. All right, I don't know where the ball ended up. Okay.
Experiencing trauma during development along with dysregulation of biological stress systems can adversely impact childhood learning and development. Cross-sectional studies examining maltreatment and childhood have shown lower IQs and deficits in language and academic achievement in maltreated children compared to children who have not had these experiences. Children who experience prolonged neglect perform more poorly in the domains of visual attention, memory, learning, and inhibitory control. But there are less deficits with these children when the tasks involve auditory or executive processing, goal-oriented, student mastery.
All right. So it affects all those systems, right? So the main thing I want to point out is less deficits involving auditory and executive processing. So the goal oriented. So that's actually going to go into Miss Amanda here in a minute. Goal oriented. So that's part of the phase system, right? We're goal oriented. Before, there wasn't a whole lot of goal to look forward to, right? So if we don't know how to really like memory learning, that's a deficit, right? You can over and over, right? Don't do that. Let's not do that. Can't do that. Read the rules. Well, can't really read real good. I can read, but it's not processing. You can tell me not to do it, but I don't really understand why I shouldn't do it. But if you set small increments, it's easier for them to be like, oh, I see why. Right? Because when you have the lack of a memory or attention, point A is here and point B is over here. That's a long way to go. But if we have, oh, we're going to start here, and then we're going to do a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, it's easier for them to remember and process it as you go, instead of, how many kids have we told to go do something, and in 5 minutes they're like, I don't know what you just said.
Yeah.
I ain't got a clue. I don't know. Right? But if we give them steps, it's easier for them to process the steps than it is to just be like, okay, well, let's just use clean your room, for example. Go clean your room. Well, okay. Don't know how to do it. You told me how to do it before, but I really don't know. But how about, okay, put your socks away, sweep the floor, like the steps of it. Make it easier for them to process. All right.
These investigations strongly suggest that childhood maltreatment interferes with executive and control circuits, whose dysregulation is an important contributor to adolescent and adult mental health and substance use disorders. Thus, childhood trauma can have detrimental effects on the brain networks that establish an individual's ability to think and regulate their sense of self, motivations, and behaviors. Childhood maltreatment is also associated with adverse development of brain reward regions involved with recognizing emotions and social cognition, such as superior temporal gyrus and the orbital frontal cortex.
Okay, so again, I'll just keep throwing that in there, right? There's a reason. Because it affects all of that so much. All right. So recognizing emotions and social cognitions. Let's go back to our family dynamics, right? If mom and dad didn't express their emotions correctly or appropriately, well, I won't say correctly, but appropriately. They didn't express their emotions correctly or appropriately, good Lord. Are we going to be able to recognize an emotion very well? So let's say Mr. Caleb goes up to a kid and is like, can you please do this? Right? And then Zach goes up to him and is like, oh my gosh, would you please do it? Sometimes they don't really differentiate it. Sometimes they might actually react better to, I think we have a girl right now that if you're more stern with her, she reacts better than if you're nice to her. So what's that tell you? What has she probably experienced? She's probably been yelled at her whole life, so she doesn't know how to react. When Mr. Caleb comes up to her, he's like, sweetie, I really need you to put your clothes away. So when Mr. Dad goes up to her and is like, would you please just go put your clothes away? Oh, okay. That's nice to me. That's creepy. Like, Mr. Caleb being nice to me is creepy. Like, so they don't understand the difference of this is actually probably the appropriate way to speak to someone. So again, when they speak to somebody, being rude is not rude. It's normal. All right, how do we improve family dynamics?
Please silence your phones.
Be available for some distraction-free conversations, focus on using I statements and practice listening with intention and checking to ensure you understand what your family members are saying. Conflict resolution technique. If conflicts arise, try to think of your family members as part of the same team with shared goals. Don't be afraid to pause a quibble square and circle back to the conversation when you're feeling calm. Practice taking responsibility for your actions and accepting genuine apologies.
All right, now I'm getting over here in Zach's lane. With the eye escape, right?
Mhm.
Is this not what we're trying to do with the eye escape? Setting down, pausing, being present for them. So that's why it's so important, because if you've gotten into an argument and you're disagreeing and you just walk away, like I'm done, like which we do, right? It's okay to walk away. But if we don't circle back around and say, okay, I'm listening to you, let's figure out what happened. One, we're probably not going to learn from what we did. We're not going to understand why they did it. But two, we're just putting them back in the same situation they've always been in. Nobody cares. My opinion doesn't matter. What happened to me doesn't matter. All right.
Building trust and empathy with the family. Make time for quality time together so that you can have shared experience with the family. Practice, validate each other's emotions and experiences, even when you disagree in transition mode. How you say that one?
Model transparency.
Okay, and involve others, members in a discussion in a development appropriate way. Right, that's the neat other part.
Listen, I'm just pointing out
I was aiming for
that
that.
Zach reading the whole time.
I can't read. Oh, no.
All right, so working with a mental health professional. Sometimes it can be helpful to work with a neutral third party who specializes in helping families nurture healthy dynamics. This can be at an individual, couples, or family therapy level.
That was beautiful. All right. So when it says validating each other's emotions, right? That sounds really mushy and hippie and all the things, right? But pretty much, we're in an argument, right? And this is what I talk about a lot, is you can disagree, but also you can look at each other and be like, okay, I don't agree with you, but this is my opinion. It's okay to say that, right? I don't particularly agree with you, but I also have an opinion. And that's one thing with the kids, right? They can have their opinion. There's nothing wrong. It's good that they have their opinion. That's autonomy, right? But it's also okay to talk about why you have differences in opinion. All right. And then
Christy, read the references.
That is so a student, like a master's student thing to put the references. I love that.
well, it's cost you probably if you don't.
And it's in AP.
I don't want to go to jail. Nobody else has things to do in the next 10 years. Catch me out of that. When I want to retire, then maybe I'll choose to.
You did good, Christy.
Are there any questions?
You avoided jail.
Anything about that? No? No questions, no comments?